Here we are looking at the top 30 momentum companies over the last quarter and the 30 launchpad companies. They're the ones that can be the breeding ground and be the next market leaders. But we need to understand that we need to analyze them. We need to see whether there's a cluster, a large group of companies in the same theme, because that helps lead that movement into the market leaders and becoming those monster stocks. The one here goes through the charts, picks through both lists, and helps us identify the opportunities, understand what the learning points are and where the pivot points are. It's Gary Glover from Novus Capital. He gets the list on a Thursday. That is the same time that our members get it. So if you want the list the same time Gary gets it, you can join below. Here we are on Friday when the video is published after market close, and he's sharing the insights of what he's pulled out of the list. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Chris. Great.
Well, this week we've had a bit happening. You've got some great charts to show us, a lot of green bars on that one. And we often ask you about the themes and things that you pull out of the lists. But when you're looking at these lists, obviously there's a fair bit of research and background that you've got, dare say, decades, without giving away your age, experience in trading markets. So when you look at the list, what are you're not only looking at the opportunities, but what is it that you're coming to that list with?
Yeah, I think my face gives my age away, possibly. But look, I thought I'd actually give a quick disclaimer there with trading, what we're doing here as well. But it's important. I guess just 3 points I want to make here is that trading is not easy. So if someone makes it out to be really easy, they're lying to you. If you've been watching myself for a while and I make it sound easy, then I apologize, because it does take a bit of hard work trading. But yeah, there's definitely, it can definitely save your journey, by following a lot of what we're sort of covering here. So just want to make the point, trading's not easy. It does take a bit of hard work. So you do need a little bit of determination there. Don't be good at bad times. But yeah, I just don't want to make it, hopefully I don't make it sound too easy all the time. The second point I want to make is that, the big thing with this is if you're bottom dwelling, or trading on-trending sort of stocks, that's where losers typically play. That's the hardest place to make money in the market, is when they're not trending and you're trying to catch lows, because that's where people play. It's one of the big reasons why the stats favor a lot of retail traders losing money, because human behaviour wants to sort of try and pick lows. Okay, so that's where the greatest danger lies there. So really, these relative strength names, the strongest names there, that's where the biggest gainers are. That's where the biggest moves are. And you want to be trading in those stronger names. That's where the biggest gains are made there. So that's probably the biggest thing that you'll learn from following this channel. Chris myself there, Chris's reports from Friday this morning. The third thing that I think really important is with momentum, is trading with momentum stocks and these strongest names, is that if you're not using stops, then I think you're a little bit mental. And I mean that the nicest way is that you have to understand what comes next trading momentum shares. Like these biggest movers, as Chris and I we keep highlighting every week, they go longer and stronger than we thought, than anyone ever thought. So these things, the momentum, and this market here, this is probably one of the strongest momentum markets I've seen. Just those stocks of momentum behind them just really keep going up and up and up. So it's a real V-shaped sort of market at the moment. But you have to realize what comes next is that, and Minoviti writes about it in the 50-80 rules, that 80% of these stocks will have a 50% decline, and then 50% can actually have that 80% drop as well. So there's with this glory, there's these big ultra moves and these trends which run way stronger, way longer than everyone expects. Once they're done, then there's usually a large price correction. Even the best names. I mean, just have to look at CNEW at the moment. It's been one of the sort of stronger names there for the last few years. It's just topped out at 26 and got down to 13 the other day. Just classic. I mean, great company. I guarantee every analyst would have been loving the stock around $22, $24 after it's had that, terrific that run there. So that's what comes next after these big movers. They run for a lot while everyone expects, but when they're done, they do have these pretty large falls. So that's why I think if you're trading momentum shares, you do need to have a mechanism to get you out if it moves against us. So that's really the 3 disclaimers there. It's not easy, but you can make it work with hard work. The beauty is it can be done on your own with friends, or it's really up to you. That's the beauty. There's really, it can be life changing if you take trading pretty seriously. The one thing you'll learn about trading is you'll learn about yourself a lot more as well. You'll probably become a better person if you really take the trading pretty seriously. Keep away from the bottom stuff. Just look in the top half of charts. I keep saying that. That's just imperative there. A lot of these, relative strength leaders, it can go up. But oftentimes even these strongest names, and they look like they've gone too hard, they will have that breather and they'll tend to go again. It's taken a while to sort of get into this bloody skull here, but that's where the easy money gets made. Actually, is trading those stronger names, waiting for those pauses and those tight pauses. So stick with that, and just have a mechanism to get out if you're wrong. That's the thing, as traders there. No trader's right all the time. You have to be comfortable. The best traders get comfortable with losing, but they know. It says, so it's.
I think you were saying Killamuggy, his win-loss ratio, he only wins sometimes 30-35% of his trades, which means losing 65% of his trades, he's stopping out. It's just quite a painful way to trade, but it takes a thick skin and he gets the best returns. Yeah,
that's right. I think I'm trying to think of the legendary sort of hedge fund manager. It's okay to lose as long as you lose small, but when you win, you win big. So everything really revolves around that sort of sentence there with trading. So you really have to get comfortable with lots of sort of small losses. And you need a mechanism to actually stay with those biggest winners there. So let's get stuck into the list there, Chris.
Yes.
Number 2 on the list, so looking at a quarterly momentum there, was Raspberry, RSH. It's had a bit of a pop here on the daily, some pretty chunky volume. It's a little small for me. But has had a pretty sharp run. There hasn't been really too many great trade opportunities so far. But when we see a big move, which has gone up, 2.5% to 7.5%, so it's gone up 3 times there. We just put that stock in our list there because maybe it'll have a pause and a congestion. And if it does that on sort of lighter volume, the whole thing tightens up at a VCP or a cup and handle or one of those classic patterns, then we sort of come back and look at it. But at this stage, it just goes on our watch list. NYR, thought this was pretty interesting, Bruce, just because even though it's a smaller name there, again, we've had that big pop, then it's had a bit of a correction there, and then it's kind of based for a while. Really, sort of from that March high there, we've sort of got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months there. So we talk about like a lot of them are in that sort of 2 to 5 month band. They can stretch out to 7 or 9 months, but a lot of these big moves will have that corrective process there for 2 to 5 months. So it did start to build here. Whole thing tightened up in here, a little VCP in there. And then you get a bit of a B-wave break and a VCP coming out of here, which is what we're looking for to follow on after those big moves. So this is the thing, we're seeing lots of big moves like this, but sometimes these corrections can take a long time. So sometimes they can sort of like the levels for a while. Those really sort of big moves and then the high tight flags that they only sort of coil for a few weeks or a month, they're pretty rare. Normally these corrective processes takes a while. I've sort of been looking through a lot of these here recently, Chris, that have been on the list in the last year or two, the big poppers, and then not many, like a few of them will have a high type flag and go again, but most of them will tend to use up all the time before they have another leg up there. I thought this was pretty interesting here. This has gone back up near the high here, so so far looking like a big cup here. The volume was big here, pretty light in here, a bit better in here. It's a bit small for me, but definitely want to keep an eye on there. Could potentially show up a bit of a cup and handle later on. LKE, just in another small name there, did sort of, start to get a bit of volume in here, a bit of a change of character. And that's now sort of taken out a few swing highs there. So, just got to watch this. You're starting to see this thing move here, and it's probably doubled in value here in a quick period of time. So this goes on our watch list there. There are quite a few of those. Because they've got so many lithium sort of stocks on the board here, Chris. We've seen so many of them actually pop here, and even some other sort of small miners, quite a few of the small golds have actually popped as well. So typically you want to be in the leaders. Those sort of stocks that when they light up the launch pad there on like a whole sector, so early names are the ones that probably kick on there. So I think we're thinking about uranium there with 3 weeks ago. I think deep yellow was the one that was probably the fastest mover, and it's probably moved the biggest, percentage wise of the whole lot there. So that's what it sort of shows you there. Oftentimes what happens is that you can look for some of the sister companies there, and there will be other pockets in there, but the ones that sort of take off more than they do tend to make bigger moves there. NTM. Yeah, I thought this was interesting there. That's silver and gold. Just again, had that big surge early here. Did sort of pull back a month there. Had another little, surge here. It hasn't gone with it. So that's when you sort of see these things pull back and then run again. But they often do go through a quick process. So I mean, if you think about that, that's sort of January. Probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of 7 months there before we start turning up there. So, they can go through a long period of time after these big bursts there. But this thing started to build quite nicely here now. So had a nice little drive up there. It's definitely take a little bit of a B wave break here. So this this thing after this big move here, downtrend, lower high. Now, you don't want to touch these things until they break the swing high here. And that's probably your first little sign there that something might have changed here. The stock, breaking above that lower high there. Then it comes back and sits on top of that high, which is a good thing. And then you actually start to see some volume come in here. And then the whole thing sort of tightens up here. It's just quite nice here because the whole consolidation is nice and tight. Staying under the high relatively close there. And then we get a bit of a trigger and it goes here. So this is not the worst looking chart here. Kind of constructive so far. A bit small for me personally, but not too bad. We know that sector is obviously, silver and gold is, it's pretty buoyant at the moment, so it's pretty positive. I thought IL1 was interesting. It's just, look, the negative here is that we've got tons of losers in front of us. So what do I mean by that? We've got, over the last year, anyone who's bought this stock has paid a much higher price for it. So anytime rallies there's going to be plenty of sellers there looking to offload their stock, there. So whether it's at a half gain or 80% loss or a 50% loss or 30% loss, so it's just going to be losers in front of us there looking to sort of try and get out there. That's the hard thing about these stocks that they're underwater. They do fight the tape a bit, but has had a bit of a pop. He's kind of tightening up at the moment. Again, it's a little small for me and not really the preferred sort of stock. Some of these stocks can have a run here, but they don't have they're not the biggest runs that you see on the market there. LM8, well, this was anything there. Just we saw a little bit of a chunky volume there, possible change of character. Probably just going to watch this one, see if it sort of tightens up at some stage. But again, not okay without being great. Thought SBM was actually interesting here. This is sort of like this is one of those sort of gold stocks that has been lagging because it's had its issues there, but did sort of start to wind up here. I guess what you sort of saw is you did get eventually we break a swing high. That's a bit of a change of character. Has a bit of a run here and then sort of pulls back, sits on top of the 50, but doesn't sort of sit on top of this high there. So it's still not in a strong position here. Probably prefer to see the stock sit on top of that old high. But what does come here is a really, really strong impulsive move. And this finally has a good rally here, pretty strong and good volume. Okay. This is probably the point where most people think, it's gone. Too late here. So what happens is these things do, like when they do have the when you see these strong moves at stocks that really move impulsively, I used to think, oh, it's already gone, I've missed the boat. But now I know, well, I've got to watch this stock here, because if it pulls up here for, same amount of days, or for, in a tight little flag, and if the no volume comes in, so if you sort of see here, first day down, next day no volume, next day no volume, next day no volume. So it's had a bit of a pullback here. Even the next 2 or 3 days, no volume as well. Still no volume here. So the whole thing's
in there or not yet?
So it's had a really impulsive move on strong volume, pull back on very, very light volume. And then you're looking for this little, sometimes it's just a matter of just grabbing your, grabbing a trend line there, looking at a little wedge there. So that maybe it's not clear on the half hourly chart there. But, you do see these consolidations sort of come out and then build on there. But I'd probably just be looking at the daily there, just looking at this little wedge there. Once it sort of breaks above, I think this day he broke out of that wedge. And that was probably the strongest volume that we just saw for the last 6 or 7 days. So that might even be like a pivot point for us as well. That's probably the heaviest volume there for the last 10 days potentially. So if you look at
Chris Carter pocket pivot.
Yeah, because it really wasn't. I mean, that was probably the last decent day here, so it'd be pretty close to a pivot point as well. So, and then we know we sort of move up there. I mean, I saw this. We saw this was at ASB the other day, and that had a cracking run here, and the whole thing. Look how chunky that volume was on the way up. Then it pulled back here. Just look at the volume dry up, tightens up here, and then this thing comes out of the gate here. I mean, I actually did buy some of this parcel here. We were actually chatting online last week when this was going on, because if I wasn't chatting, I would have bought some more of this. So I'm making self-sacrifices being here.
We're both making sacrifices being the viewers. You leave comments and thank Harry for his time.
But I was happy to see it up when I got off the call, and I was surprised to see it move so much. Normally they take a couple of days to sort of build it here. And I thought I had a chance to sort of, because the other thing too, that first leg there, and the second leg and the third leg, that's a BCP. Because each of those little, that's A, B, C, D, E. Each of those links tightened up. It's got smaller. Oh, this is interesting. And I went back and studied a few of these. And all the ones that I studied actually had about 2 or 3 day little tighten up and then pop. So came in a little bit early this one, but that's the way it goes. But just goes to show you that don't just because those sort of stocks have that big sort of jump, don't rule it out there. They can come back on here. Some of the stocks that are moving really fast there, some of these golds there, it's bizarre because the spot gold has been robust here. Oh, so strong here for a while here. And then if anything, the gold price has actually settled at the highs. It's not really, after having that big burst, the gold stocks didn't go with it. And they're all sort of been lagging here. But you notice in the last week or two, they've all just come out of the gates here. Look at the volume there. That's big volume as well. So, so now it's going to go, it's too late. But these have had big moves, big volume there. Just don't rule out maybe seeing something, something sort of high and tight in here. You might get a little tight pattern here or something. I don't know. So just don't know here. They finally sort of come to play the gold stocks, which is great. Don't rule out. There still could be another leak in these things. They might pull back, tighten up. Say look at this stock here. Well, there's probably a few times this year we probably thought it's probably run too far, but the whole thing just keeps having a pause and then tighten up again. And then look at that. You can see here. There's a chunky volume there after it's already run for quite a while. At the time there, you would have been thinking. There's that chunky volume there. So you would have been thinking at the time there, this is run too far, probably have a breather. And it does have a bit of a breather. Starts to, you think, oh, this thing's probably cooked here. Then what does it do? It just tightens up under the high and then goes again. And look, this thing just keeps running. So just can't rule out these things continuing. We know, having followed these for now 3 or 4 years, Chris, is that the stronger names there, they always go a bit longer. So the stronger names, we want to sort of keep an eye on those, watch for pauses, and then they might set up again. But that's our watch for list there. There was a couple in there, WC8, which I said to myself, no, just because they've sort of like, look how light the volume is on that, very, very light volume there. And we are sort of coming after a pretty nasty downtrend as well. And look where the whole thing is pulled up, where right underneath the last swing. Well, that's a dangerous spot to be coming up here. So just look, I might keep going here, but that's
The odds are.
That's got danger signs for me. So I wouldn't be near it. I prefer to take the easy end. APX there, just wanted to sort of keep an eye on as well, just because it has. I did mention this last week that I think it might have been this day here, and it had a cut raising. I thought, okay, it's probably a bit negative for it. I was thinking, maybe you get this little overlapping, this little 1, 2, 3 overlapping top there. So like how a lot of those, oftentimes you see a strong move, you'll see that overlapping top. Now, when you see it, I mean, we talk about trends. Trends will often sort of sit on top of the previous high. Now, when they start accelerating, they'll leave space between the last high and the current low. That's when the stock can really accelerate. And then once the stock starts to overlap, that's a sign of weakness, because it's now sort of stopped sitting on top, building. Now, sort of okay, so one of two things happens when it starts overlapping. It can break out, come back, sit on top of that overlapping last high, and then take off, or it'll roll off, come back up and hit the swing low, and then go into downtrend. So we just got to watch either of those two there. So the thing about momentum stocks is too, quite a few of those lists there, is that some of these stocks have been running pretty tight. So look at the nature of this stock here. But this thing moves. So the last rally here, once it broke the 10-day moving average, then the thing went through a decline here. This thing was running here as well. As soon as it broke the 10-day, crossed here. So this thing here is sort of like it's flirted with the 10-day. That sort of crushed, broke below a few times there, but it's now sort of well and truly below the 10. So that should be a bit of a warning sign there for this stock here. It's just had a good run, and it's been it's been one of those stocks that really moves pretty fast and over the 10. So I know Kalamagi would definitely be out of the stock here, based on that move there.
Any more that you want to look at before we go to the launch pad? There
was, I think the other ones I think are, somebody asked about IPX, which I think we covered might have been the list there last week. Hasn't traded the last couple of days because they're doing a cap raise. That's usually can be a little bit negative. The other thing about that, we just covered it with Appen there. Look how strong this stock's been here. Hugged the 10 all the way up here. So even the 20, they've wanted to give yourself a bit more room there. Did come back to the 21s, and then once it broke the 20, it went through a bit of a sideways move here. So again, this thing's run up here. Has hugged the 10 here. It's just broken below the 10th, a little bit of a negative. I think if it breaks below the 20, the stock's probably, So that's why you got to look at these sort of stocks there. Sort of, the professionals look at these sort of 10 and 20 moving averages there for a reason there. Because those mental sort of stocks tend to sort of hug one or two of those. That's it for the quarterlies.
Right. So the quarterly list, obviously the leading companies, you've shown the charts, they're the top right, they're leading the market. And what you've done in the last 3 or 4 years in looking at this list is you go through and you'll have a look at the launch pad and see if you can identify a strong theme that's showing up, because quite often that leads to them becoming momentum leaders. So is there anything coming out this week that you're seeing in the launch pad? What are you pulling out of the list?
No, look, I know you said to me earlier that obviously in the top, so looking at the top 200 in the quarterlies, we had 1/3 mining. Yeah. To be honest, I thought it was going to be more than that.
That's 77 out of 200 were mining shares in the top momentum.
So we do, I mean, look, I know the market's pretty buoyant here, pretty strong here. So the main thing here, when you get a market that's running pretty hot like it is at the moment, just got to be careful not to get complacent. Don't leave it stops too far wide as well. We've really got to, But I have a spreadsheet there with my positions and my stops, and then I know what my maximum risk is if it all turns down. So hopefully your stocks keep running, and then you can move them into break even, and then you can move them into profit, and then you got less risk on it. So if the market all does sort of like you come in here one day and all of a sudden the market's down, 2 or 3%, pretty heavy, you know what you're going to go home with, how much capital going to be left in your account. So what's at risk, each day. So I mean, as traders there, we're obviously looking at P&L every day, which you probably shouldn't be doing. You should just be sort of following your process. And the good traders really don't really sort of look at their P&L too closely. They just look at their process more closely. So for me, I just look at my spreadsheet. I look at what risk I've got on the table. And if I can sort of move it up there, I will. I tend to sort of, because I build in positions, I tend to split my stops as well. So if I do get a little bit of weakness, maybe I get stopped out at a quarter of my position or half of it. And then if it ends up being a big drop, then maybe I get knocked out of all of it. But I don't get knocked out of all at the same level there. There's nothing worse than sort of seeing a little bit of pullback, shake you out, your entire position, and then the position goes up again. So it is a little bit choppy out there. So you just need to, I'll often use maybe sometimes I'll use the 10, sometimes I'll use the 10 and the 20. Sometimes I'll use like a weekly stock where I think, oftentimes I don't look at that sort of stock and see how it runs here. So I mean, just look at this. I didn't sort of cover this stock here, picked on the 19, but that has just hugged the 10 here. I think it's had something like 15 days above the 10-day moving average, which is just a whole move here. So, that's the beauty of that, of actually just, trade some in the heat, and if you're long a position, you just keep using the moving average, stop it up there. So just every sort of, you don't have to do it every day, but I think every sort of second day, if you're a momentum trader, you want to be sort of edging your stops there. I'll tend to sort of go through and write down my stops each day. I might review them if they've moved up. If I'm using the 50 or the 20, then I'll probably just try and move them up a little bit each day. And what we're looking for is those sort of stocks to run, and maybe running coil. But you still got to sort of manage your risk there, and particularly when the market's running. This is when most people get complacent and then they don't do it. Because I think I know that my stop's fine way back there, but all of a sudden the market turns and goes whack. You give up so much of your gains there that then you look back, a few days later, you go, Jesus, my stocks are so far back. They should have been, according to my rules, they should have been here. So I've given up, you might give up, 2 or 3, you might give up 1% on your account just because you didn't manage your stocks properly. So I just want to get into good habits there. But, so just, I guess on that momentum, on the weekly momentum there, I guess a bit of a mix there, but still got a really nice buying theme throughout there, Chris, as well. So a few golds in there. A couple of surprises in there, like AMP. Like we didn't mention AMP surprise previously. So, but yeah, there's a couple of stocks actually I did talk about recently. I think Satire was one that I particularly didn't like, but I did say previously that the whole thing was just sitting on top of this previous high, and it had really, really good volume out of that movement, and then the whole thing pulled back a light volume. So it was actually technically setting up really nice there. So the beauty was that sort of setup there, Chris, when you see that tightness there, is that even though I may not like the stock here, this is a good risk reward trade as well. This is the type of game, because if I'm wrong here, I'm going to find out. I just don't want to see it come back, give yourself a little bit. But if I'm right here, this could go to a new high here, which is the case there. So you might be risking 10 cents there to make, 60 or 70 cents, like a 7-to-1 risk reward. That's beautiful. So that's what you got to do. So, maybe you get a little starting parcel, and then once you get a B-weight break here, you might add to it. And if it has a little bit of a, this thing here set up a little, went to the high here, pretty good volume. And then we had 2 days down here, really light volume under the handles. Like, this looks pretty sweet. Like a little up and handle just congesting under the high. This is what David Ryan looks for. And then it comes out, pop. So he might have even got like 3 little, additions in there. So even the stock that you think's risky, that's why you sort of don't let our biases get in the way here. They can still set up some good trades there. And I think that AMT
I thought you were going to mention that with talking about biases.
Yeah, because this is one that I sort of, hasn't performed that well, but it has started to make some inroads there. And you're seeing this is why I can't understand the valuation of the banks, is that, you've got AMP and Macquarie making some real inroads in that loans area. And you got Judo Bank and all the other little micro banks all making inroads. So it's very competitive. So there's flat earnings growth of the banks, yet they're trading on multiples that are 2 or 3 standard deviations above the normal valuations. That's why there's craziness there. But yeah, I mean, this thing here, it's been showing relative strength all year, but there was a nice little cup and handle in here, Chris. Didn't really sort of set up too hard there. It sort of came out pretty hard, but you saw in here, even after it sort of popped through, the whole thing has stayed just tight here. The thing is there, actually, if you're a momentum trader here, you saw a little VCP in here, all this tightness there. On this day here before it reported, it actually finished. Actually broke out of that little tight area there. Actually gave you a little bit of a trigger. So, some people might have been a bit, could have even, according to Irons, I could have actually bought this.
That looks like a pocket pivot as well.
Yeah, there's a couple stronger days in here, but
6, 8, 9 days. 9 days. 1 day short.
But yeah, pretty strong price action there, just staying nice and tight here. So that's the thing. I mean, you sort of see these stocks jump up pretty hard. If they stay nice and tight, that's what we're looking for there. I think I was going to say that WGX was number 7 on the list there. So again, another one of these gold stocks that's really pulled back here. Had a bit of a jump here as well. So just keep an eye on these gold stocks there. It might seem like they're getting a little stretched there, but we know potentially they can go a bit further. I do think that gold stocks are a little bit cyclical. And if you remember, basically, like everyone's probably going to get really bullish here gold, because now the gold stocks are starting to play ball, even when they've lagged the gold price quite a bit. Everyone's going to get super bullish there. Kind of reminds me when uranium was hot. Then all those uranium shares pulled off there. So even I think Deep Yellow, we just sort of showed how strong that was. But I mean, it did pull back from 180 back to 90 cents. So these are 50% drop, Chris. So that's it. That was a lead at the time. Everyone was super bullish uranium there previously. So that's when you're going to be careful with the golds here. They're all running hot at the moment. GX, so but they can still keep going. They might have a little tight pattern and run again, but just got to remember that by the time everyone gets super bullish gold, that'll be the time probably to just be careful. They can be a bit cyclical. We're seeing all those metals there, they can get really hot to trot. The key there, if you listen to AusBiz, they'll basically, you'll have a day there where every analyst comes on board. Got to be long gold, got to be long gold, gold. You'll hear like 4 or 5 analysts throughout the whole day say gold. It'll be time to sell out. And everyone's sort of bullish. You saw that with uranium, the highs. We're seeing all the sort of tops there. So just going to be, there's always a few savvy traders on there as well who will tell you to take some money off the table. But yeah, I thought our old sort of Spartan there, which has sort of been, has been a market leader there for the last couple of years. I think probably one of the second or third best performing stocks, if I'm not mistaken. It's sort of tightened up here. It go through a bit of a pause there. I thought this might have been, corrective process there. But it did pull back here. Again, what you're looking for is to sort of see some volume there. So we saw a little bit of volume, but not much. Saw a little bit of volume, but not much here. Saw some bigger volume come back in again on this rally. And then this pullback as well. It's pretty light here. So even though I think this is probably looking a bit extended, it is not showing signs of weakness there. There's not much sort of selling coming in here. So you've popped up again. So still, these old leaders, they can keep going as we know.
Just before you leave that chart, because this is one of the ones that you put in the model book, we'll put a link to the model book at the end because great research in there. But since doing the model book, we've got that overlapping, and you were just talking about the overlapping trend before. So in September, we've got an overlapping trend here after a long rally for Spartan Resources. What is it about the volume profile for something like Spartan right here, that it doesn't say to you, this is massive topping action right now?
Well, it does worry me, the noise I'm hearing from Spartan, because I've had a lot of clients ask about the stock in the last week, and I've also seen a lot of analysts come out in the last week and get pretty bullish this stock as well. So it's run quite a lot here. So I just be careful. I personally be careful, but I do know that these leaders, they can just keep going longer than everyone expects. So it's got the potential to sort of keep going here. But again, you've got to be mindful that when this thing is done,
it hands it back.
It'll hand back large here. So, I mean, you got to run, you run with the bulls. But you don't want to, when they stop running, you don't want to be getting, the horns in your back, when you don't see them coming. So that's why you sort of got to run with sort of stops and these things as well. So, quick question there, Chris. You won't know this, but I'm going to get you to guess. Market cap, SPR. Any idea?
I do not know. No, I'm not even hazard a guess, because that's just climbed and climbed.
Let's have a little guess. What do you think? 500 mil, 800 mil, $1 billion.
I guess by billion. I want to guess 2 billion.
2 billion. You're not far away. Yeah, about 1617 or something. It might be at least. It might even be one today. Well, that's a serious sized company now.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, everyone's getting pumped up and buoyant here about this company. And so it's obviously done pretty well. It's got some great grades, and it's going to be around for a while here, but it's got a market valuation of around about 1.7.
Yeah, 1.685. Just looking at Lars now.
1.7 billion. So that's pretty serious. I mean, there's some gold companies that have been around for 5-10 years with
not bad.
Yeah. We've been reducing for quite a while, and so just to put that in context.
But that's a good point. So I remember hearing just a couple of days ago, Nvidia's market cap getting close to that of Apple, Microsoft, sort of within the same realms. And they're looking back at data, and we know Stan Weinstein did this. We know that Thomas Bukowski have done these numbers, and I think William O'Neill might have done it as well. Exactly what you're saying about running with the bulls, and you don't want to get the horns in the back. We know, and this is why we cover this every single week, we want to be trading with the momentum leaders. But when they turn south and in a bearish market phase, doesn't have to be long, they are the worst place to be. And I love the one that you taught me about Amazon and how much that got torn up after the tech wreck. And they are categorically the worst place to be if you don't run your stocks properly. So,
yeah, there's plenty of fundamental, analysts and fundamental groups out there that'll tell you basically just buy the best stocks and don't sell them. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life, because we've seen the best stocks on the planet go through, have 70, 80, 94% corrections and take 7 to 9 years to come back to their old highs here. So, yeah, if you want to buy a top of the market there and be underwater for 9 years, you go for your life there, pedal that sort of either somewhere else. I'd prefer to be making money every year. I prefer not to be underwater for 9 years. So, but let's get on to SPR. Still looks pretty solid here. Hasn't really shown signs of strength there. What weakness is so far? Has had just a bit of a sideways pause there, Chris, as well. So, I mean, the thing about that little sideways orientation there is that once they sort of break out of those little rectangles, they tend to sort of move by the same size of that. So, and say that we just didn't see too much selling in there. So, yeah, look, maybe it goes higher here. I'd just be a little, and look, if I was long my stock there, I definitely wouldn't be selling out here, but I'd be sort of trailing. I'd probably just, stock like that as hard as 10 or 20 pretty hard. So I'd be using that as my guide personally. Take emotions out of it. CEL, I thought was pretty interesting there. Just looking at another sort of gold play there, but what we do have there is, Chris, is a little bit of a BCP going on. So it's had a bit of a pop here above the 50, pulled back, another pop again. Whole thing's tightened up again. Starting to see some pretty good volume here, pretty chunky. Right to come in here. So yeah, it's a little small for me, but this is the right sort of pricing behaviour we want to see, and the volumes come in here at the right times there. So, yeah, that was a bigger stock. It would definitely have me interested. GMD, again, just, that's interesting how the whole thing's just sort of pulled back here and sort of sat on top of this, previous sort of high as well. So that's pretty constructive overall. Has gone to a new high here now, so got to be a little wary. But some of these gold stocks, once they've sort of gone on, they've gone on it. But yeah, just kind of a little bit wary of gold here, just because it's had a pretty good run here. Just everyone seems to be getting a little gold crazy. So just but yeah, look, who knows? These things tend to go longer than we think. Playside Studios was interesting there. Had a bit of a shake up here off the lows there. Did go back for a bit of a false break. The only thing I don't like about it is there's no volume in there, Chris. Even though did just break a B wave there around that sort of 61 cent, which I thought was constructive, but I haven't seen any volume come in here. So that normally, look, if we don't see big volume come in, then we can still get a move, but I generally find it's not a big move. So you still might get a bit of a rally there, but oftentimes ends up not being a big one. Whereas that, from my experience, when you see the big volume come in, that's when you can get the bigger moves. And let's face it, we're not here to catch small rallies. We're trying to here to catch big ones. So we want to see the right ingredients there every time. I mean, like one of that, to be honest, with my trade review sheet and with basically one of my trading rules, actually all my plays, is the volume profile. So for me, the volume profile makes up one of my sort of scoring points for the trade. So if we don't have the right volume profile, then it's basically like it's a negative, or it's basically doesn't get me a point, which means that it doesn't make it an A plus trade here. RSG, I mean, this it's a pretty nice gold stock here, Chris. All that was all the 50, just hugged it the whole way. So I mean, so like once you start to learn the personality of the stock here, so this I mean, so this stock here, if you own this stock here, you probably stay long here until it breaks a 50. So far, it's just kept pulling back 50, 50, 50, 50.
Doubled your money while holding on to it.
Yeah, and it's just sort of kept there. So each stock's got its own personality. Like some of those, like that, the app in there loves the 10-day. Once it breaks the 10-day, it's normally over for a while. RSG here, you can see it's just hugged the 50 the whole time. So you be sort of sticking with it. You might maybe sell some into heat once it gets a certain away from the 50, and then maybe you add it back on when it come back there. So if it gets maybe 1 or 2 standard deviations away from that 50, that might be sort of something to look for there. But those golds, golds are pretty buoyant here. Pretty good volumes as well. So maybe there's still another leg in these things. What do we got there? BOQ. This one surprised me on the list there. If I had this one, I'd be probably selling it, mate. Just because the valuations are so high, these things. And you rarely see a stock like this turn into a momentum play as well. So,
it was net interest margins that popped that on an update, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, they've had a big run here, these things. I mean, it's look, it doesn't look too bad on the set of it. Look, maybe this has got some more legs in it. Maybe there's someone looking for it again, but it's not typically not normally a momentum play. Then like I say, look, that's a bias of mine, so I'll try not to get it away.
Well, we did that with CTT and AMP, didn't we?
Yeah. So that's kind of that's mainly it there. A couple of stocks I thought were sort of interesting, Chris, that I think probably been on and off our list here recently. I thought BIO was sort of interesting there, just because obviously we've had this pretty strong trend, been a leader for a while. What I did notice in here is that it's had a bit of a pullback in here, but look at the last 4 days on this pullback there. Just no selling on the stock here. So it's come back. It's now sort of going above a little B wave as well. So that's why sort of my first category to have a look at it is to sort of break a swing high here. So pretty strong trend there. The only negative with the stock is that it has been sort of building on top of the high. This last pullback there did undercut the the previous high there. So it doesn't make it as strong. You still go to a new high there, but it just tells you it's starting to lose a bit of momentum. Even that volume is probably telling you that as well. So it can go higher here, but as is starting to lose a little bit of its momentum. But the fact that it stayed above its 50 is pretty solid as well. MYX I thought was pretty interesting here. This is sort of, I thought there was a nice VCP in here. Came out of here and it didn't get going. Pull back into the range again. I think sort of Tyro might have done something different. Went down, undercut, then came back out and then zoomed. And then had a good rally and then Tyro's come off because of some of these new suspected rules coming out. But this thing sort of, so far it's hugged the 50 here quite nicely. Just starting to sort of coil up again as well. Volumes are a little light. Probably want to, like to see some sort of big move here. Strong finish on some good volume. That's really the only thing missing there so far. Good little setup, but this needs a sort of needs a pivot day, Chris. A good sort of up day on big volume there. That looks sort of constructive. MTH was sort of one of those ones that's had the big move and pulled back in the range there. So whole thing's sort of tightening up here. The volume's tightened up here. So it's kind of interesting. The only thing we're sort of seeing with a lot of these recently is that they can have a bit of a pop, but then they're fading, then using up a bit more time. So you can potentially get a bit of a rally here. Look, I'd say maybe only 10 or 20% will probably come out of this and go to a new high, whereas most of them will sort of pop it and consolidate for a bit longer. That's just my observation from what I've seen with those sort of stops that had that really big move. Because that's a nice move. That's like a 700% gain there. So that's definitely on my radar.
Would you, if you were trading that, gave you the right entry signal now in the current climate and how the market's moving with these types of moves and what you've just talked about, would you be selling into day 3, day 5, and then running a stop?
Yeah. So you can see, it's tightened up here. So the volume's really, really tight as well. So the beauty is there. So there's that range there. So what, 44 to 47 was yesterday's range. So today we're inside that again. So 44 to 46 and a half range here. So the thing about, what do they call that? There's a name there where they look at the range is sort of tightening. It's like SPAC or SPRAT trading or some sort of but what they do is they look for those sort of stocks to sort of coil up, and then I guess the beauty is here is that if you did sort of just say what this position here, say play water at say 46 cents, you wouldn't want it to break. After today, you wouldn't want to break this low, but just say you use yesterday's low, so say 44. Okay, so you say you stops at say 43 and a half something. So if you buy it at 46, so you're only risking 2.5 cents. Okay, so this comes out of here. It does pop here, just say it pops to 60, then it's made 15 cents, and you've only risked, 2.5 cents or something like that. So you sort of got a pretty good risk reward. So if it did pop up to, say, 55 or something like that, you might trade it, might trade half into heat and then maybe backstop the rest at break even. Because you don't know, and I'd say, only a small percentage of these can sort of really kick on. But a lot of them, will probably go back onto the ranges somewhere, then they'll sort of meander back again. But it could still be okay. So it's we're looking for these stronger names after they sort of have it cool. And to me, it's probably you prefer to sort of see them in the top third or top quarter, but in the top half is still sort of solid enough there. I noticed some of the like the China sort of stuff here is now that's had a cracking move, the CNEW and the CETF, and now they've come back. Probably 2/3 of the range, come back a bit deeper here, but it's interesting now. Sort of, I think that I was looking at the Shanghai stuff there that it's gone above the old high, but they're coming back near the old high, so maybe they'll find support at the old highs here. So definitely watching these ones there, just because they can move here. And I do think all that stimulus out of China. If you go study the Shanghai, I'd say maybe 2/3 of the lows that come in for the China. Of those, we look at the trends that followed that, probably 2/3 of that get stimulated by the government that does take some action there to get its market going. So I don't know why it needs government stimulus there to get going there, but it just in the past there it's just needed sort of needed the government to step in and get it going in. I don't know why. Yeah. LTP, I think, is pretty interesting there. Been one of the stronger names there. If you study those model book, Chris, as well, we know that sometimes, like, there's no sort of setup here, but we do know that those stronger names, they often will sort of cool back and come back to the 50 and then build from there. And they will sort of tend to sort of keep making higher lows as well. So to go back and sort of study those model book names, like a lot of the ones that are a bit more, that they will tend to float with a 50. Sometimes they hold it, sometimes they just break it. But they tend to sort of keep making just constant sort of high lows here. So this would be probably where if I was going to be looking at this again, this would be where my probably stop would be, which is a bit far back, but it's not really a tight person. So it means you probably, be looking at this here, you probably got to trade it small here if you like this story, because really sort of that's a pretty fast stop back here. But because it can just, can float with a 50 a bit. So, or otherwise, if you're like me, probably wait for, this will have a bit of a bounce. Maybe it'll tighten up again, little coil, and I'll wait for a little B wave. I'll wait for a little bit of a tightening and then a B wave. I'll be happy to buy it higher, but on a better sort of setup, if that makes sense. But really watching the stock gigs, I think this thing's got, I think it's really got a lot of potential growth there. I think people are underestimating how big that. Well, yes, yeah. Well, it's really, if you look at the data there, the weird thing is when that data got published the other day, that was the 14th of October, and that data was outstanding. But this is what happens is that sometimes the insiders they know they get the news is coming. So when they get the good news, they know there's liquidity on those days. So they will sort of sell into that liquidity there and that good news. So that LTP there, I think, so they're literally, I think it was like 4 or 5 times faster working, the nasal spray versus the tablet, and also the dosage was half. They were getting pretty much about 95% of the same effects with half the dosage. That makes it much safer than taking the tablet. Well, so although it's only 24, I think only 24 study, the data's really good. So nasal spray is very convenient as opposed to a tablet. Timing, really important in that. So there's a lot to like with this one here. I know everyone's sort of dubious on it there, but some of the best stuff is just simple. I mean, the thing that gets me with this stock here is I think you've had all these other tablets around for the last 10 years. Okay. Why hasn't anyone thought, we put this in a nasal spray, it would be work much faster? Because we know this, if we do spray our nose and we do them so much faster. So it's just amazing that, but this is what happens. Sometimes it just takes something simple to change the game. So,
and on that one, I remember you saying in the model book that we released this week, so go back and have a look at model book number 3 for those who want to learn this, is that in one of the companies that you were studying for the model book, you said that studying that company really helped you get a great setup for LTP and a really good trade because you'd studied a similar breakout before. So,
I have to be careful not to let your biases get in the way. Because I remember I did see that sort of Findi, and I did study that quite a bit of detail there. And I at the time, I thought, okay, that's interesting sort of state bank contract there, get going into ATMs. And I thought, maybe the media market might have been moving a bit more towards digital, but I didn't realize there's still a lot of people there who hadn't used ATM, so it's still basically just getting paid cash and everything. So it's a good safe way to be. So that usage ended up being massive. So a lot more than I thought here. So just got to get rid of your biases. 40X was another one that I thought was interesting. It is a bit of a downtrend, so that's probably a negative, but we did have a big jump on good volume, and the whole thing is sort of tightening up here, Chris, little BCP at the moment. So definitely want to have a closer look at there. I sort of got that on my radar to have a look at this weekend, just sort of go back and look at what that announcement was, what's happening with the company, just sort of get my head around what's happening there. I did see someone have a list of sort of biotechs that they favoured for the next year, and I did see it was on a list with a few other good names. So I thought, okay, I better go and explore that one. That's one to look at. DXB was one that did sort of again. This has been on our leading list for quite a while. Had a bit of a pop here, and then sort of did go through a bit of a had that really sharp move there, broke the 10 and the 20 and the 50. You might sort of say there, but it has sort of called here, so it's now had like an A, B, C. So therefore, it goes I look at these things where they get my radar, but it did make a slight new low here. Then it started to break here, so it did break a little bit of B waves there, around sort of 40 cents there. So I thought, okay, this is interesting here because it sort of has been a leader. This has stayed pretty high in the range. If we go and look at our weekly range, stayed pretty high at. The thing I like it actually is it sat on top of that previous high crest as well. So it still leaves it in a pretty decent position. Even though this is larger than you'd like to sort of see, it did sort of sit on top of that high. So it still potentially could have another leg up there. So this is interesting to me. I just want to see how this trades from here. Maybe it'll tighten up, coil up here, but you definitely want to keep an eye on it just because it has been has showed relative strength for quite a while. We know sort of these old leaders can become new leaders again. So definitely want to keep an eye on this. But that's about it for me. I won't go on anymore.
Well, for those who are watching and made it this far in the video, we say thank you. But we also need to thank Gary because he's given up his time, and clearly he has missed trades in the past because he's contributing the time and research through these videos. So show your appreciation, give a thumbs up, comment below to let us know which parts of the video you like the most. And to that end, we say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll put on screen a link into the model book, the one that was released this week, model book number 3, and see if you can find that Findi chart and the similarities that really helped Gary with his own LTP trade that's just been more recent than the Findi breakout.